Hello and welcome back. Today we will look at Python functions and how we can use them. Functions are a combination of code which can be used to automate repetitive tasks. A good use case would be, let's say you need to add two variables, you need to multiply it by a specific value, then you average it out and then you do some more fancy calculations. And let's say you need to get this done multiple times through the code. You can either write these 5-6 lines multiple times. That will get the job done, but it's redundant and it's inefficient. Smartest way is to write out a function that will take in all of those input values, do all of the process that you need to get done, all of the calculation, and then return you as a result. The benefit of it is that you save the code lines, you write it once, and you can reuse it as well. Right, so let's jump right into it. Alright, so basic syntax of function is keyword def followed by a helpful function name. Keep in mind that you have to follow the acceptable guidelines for naming your variables. We can get the list of reserved Python keywords from help keywords. So let's do that first. So we can see that what are the reserved Python reserved keywords that we cannot use them in our codes. Alright, so we can see here is a list of Python keywords. You cannot use any of these keywords to name a variable. So these are false, none, true, false, break, class, all of these. So if you try to name a variable using it, it would not let you use that variable name. All right. Also keep in mind that you cannot use spaces in variable names. All right. So let's open up our first function. So we type def. Def is you can say defining a function. You type it of test function name. So let's say we say test func and we put in parenthesis. So alright, so you put in the test function as function name, then in round brackets you add the parameter name, which will be input name to the function, followed by a colon. Parameter field can be left blank, so let's leave it blank for now. Let's type in a colon here, and you can see here that this opens up the function. Any good text editor or IDE will automatically indent anything you write below this. The indentation indicates that this code block is a part of this function. Alright, so a good practice is to include docstrings. Docstring is something that you can type in to identify what your code does. If you're like me and you code a lot, it will be very difficult for you to remember what most of your codes do. So this will be very helpful for you to know what this code does. So we type in a triple quote. So a triple quote is basically used as a multi-line comment, and it's helpful specifically with docstrings because you can type in multiple lines of instructions of what the code does. So let's say we just type this code will print out test function, and we can say this is line 2 just to see that this will pull up the line 2 as well. Alright, so let's say print, we say this is a test function. Alright, so that's it. That's our whole function. So you can see once we step out of the indentation, this is the end of the function. So let's run it. And the first thing we would like to see is we want to see what the docstring looks like. If we want to see that what test func does, we can access docstring by, we will say the function name test underscore func, then we type in a dot, then we put in dunder sign double underscore doc. This should pull up the doc strings for this function. Let's wrap this in a print function, and as you can see that this is now printing up the information for the function. Says this code will print out test function. So anything you put inside doc string will be printed here. Now within the function you can write whatever you need to get done. You can either have the function print out something, like in this case we are printing out just this line, or you can return something that can be added to a variable, or you can return a value. In later case you will need to add a return keyword at the end of the function as well. Alright, so for testing basis, let's add two numbers and print them out and call our function. So I'm gonna comment this out. I would say x equals 5 plus 5, and then I would say print the value of x. So we say value of x, and then we say x. Right, so this is our whole function. What it's doing is it's just adding up two numbers and then it's printing the value of it in a print function. Let's run it. I'm gonna get rid of this and I'm going to call function. So calling the function is really easy. If you have not passed any parameter to the function, you would just type in the function name in empty parentheses, you press enter, and it will call out the function. So you can see here that is calling out the function. The function is adding up the value of x, 5 plus 5, and then it's returning value of x, and then the value of x is actually 10, and this is our function. Alright, so let's make it dynamic and have it accept two variables, x and y, and return us the result, because this right here is not very useful because you have hard-coded the values here. So what we're gonna do is we would define x and y as two variables, and here you will define, let's say, result underscore var as a new variable which will hold the result for these values. So we say x plus y. We can add few more calculations here. So let's say we multiply the result of this. So what we are doing is we're adding up this number x plus y, which will be passed as input. Whatever the value adds up, we multiply it by, let's say, 5, and then we reassign it and divide it by 10. Okay, and now it will be, we will modify this value of, we will change this result var is, and instead of x we will say result underscore var. Okay, let's run this and let's run this again. Alright, so as you can see here that this is erroring out, and let's read up what's saying is test func missing two required positional arguments x and y. So it's telling us that we are missing the required arguments. We have not passed any arguments to this function which are mandatory. So let's pass in, let's say, 5 and 10, and let's run this again and see if it runs. Right, so what it's doing is it's adding up 5 plus 10, then it's multiplying it by 5 and then dividing by 10, and then it is showing up the result as result var is and then the actual value. Okay, so as you can see here that this function is returning the value as a print. We can also return this value, and the benefit of returning a value itself is that we can store it in a variable. Let's say we can store this in a variable as well, but all of this will be stored. So let's say we say test var was this, and then we print it out. Okay, so as you can see here that the whole print statement has been saved in this variable value, which may not be useful if you're going to use this value somewhere in the calculation. So let's comment this out, and what we'll do is we would add a return statement. So anytime you want the function to return any specific value after doing some calculation on it, you type in the return keyword. As you can see here, this should be, yeah, this is also a Python reserved keyword, so you cannot use it to name any variable. So we would say result underscore var. We run this, and as you can see here, now it will only return a 7.5. So let's run this again and see it's returning 7.5. Okay, all right, so what happens if we skip a required parameter? So let's say we just give 5 to this and run this. Okay, so it's telling us again that we are missing one required positional argument y we have not entered. So the way to tackle this is we can use default parameters as well in the functions. The way default parameters work is that if you do not enter the value for it, it will use that value, and if an input value is being entered, it will use the input value. Right, so easy ways for this is to test it out. So let me clear outputs. Let me run this again just for reference. Okay, so what I'm going to do is whatever parameter I would like to make default, I would just put an equal sign in front of it and give its default value. So let's say I would say y's default value is 20. So in case where I'm not giving default value for y, it will use 20. If I give a value for y, it will use that value which I have given. So now this will not error out. Let me run this first. Now let me run this. So what it's going to do is 5 will go in x, and as you can see here, we have not passed any y, so y will be kept blank, but the default value of y will be used as 20. So let's run this. As you can see here, it's not giving out any error, and it's returning us the proper result. Alright, so this is how you can use default values. Another thing to remember is the scope of variable is only within the function, so the value of x and y is only contained within this function. Alright, so this wraps up this video on Python functions. We seen how to use basic Python function syntax, how to return or print something, or how to use default parameters. In the next video, we will go through 4 different examples of functions and how to use them. And in the next video after that, we will go through keyword arguments and how we can give multiple inputs to Python functions. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.